spawns other kinds of results. So it has its own life. The life of something that lives as an idea is quite different from the life of something that lives as a reality moving in the world.
Maybe I should introduce its rainmaking time.
Right.
Maybe I should reintroduce its rainmaking time here.
Well,
I think we're at the point of form now.
Uh-huh.
You have spoken in the past of a body of work or a project needing to be, is it variated? Variated enough for others to get on board.
Well, yes, there has to be a variety in it. There has to be enough differentiation and enough different colors in it for people to be able to latch on to something that is already them in the project. Otherwise, if it's simply the articulation of a leader, it goes only so far as the leader can go, which is not as far as a whole group can go. So there's something about complexity that allows for the greater potentiality of creativity in relation to any project.
Almost
it
like...
also makes it harder to coordinate, of course.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving right along. Yeah, let's see. I've been at this, a few years here. And we're now just at the head of the baby, okay?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This baby's crowning. We just don't know what it is yet. Okay.
Right.
And the reason I ask you that is that there are really so many people around the world who are carrying creative works, carrying poetry, music that's coming through them and to them, projects that are near and dear to their heart, who are called to do them and can't not do them. And I've never heard anybody talk about the realm of manifesting a project and carrying it and what on a textual level it needs to be like the way I've heard you speak. So that's why I wanted to ask you about that. For those of us who are creative and involved in projects, whether they're highly creative or business projects or any kind of projects.
Well, a lot of people get stuck because they wait for the world to validate their project before they take the second step. They take one step and then they wait for something to say yes. Whereas actually, projects develop in a kind of dance with the universe. So you take one step and you listen carefully for what the universe says. And the universe doesn't usually say a clear yes or no. It says something else like blue or peacocks or grass or something that just you don't know. And then you integrate that into the project. So you dance with the universe's response to your project. You don't wait for validation of the idea that you had. And then the project changes in the course of dancing with the universe.
As you speak it, it's as if a project has its own life, its own voice, its own texture, its own compositional structure that speaks to the carrier.
Yes, it's like a child in that. I mean, you can support a child and you can give it the nurturing it needs, but it does have its own identity, and you can't control it in any kind of way.
Speak more about that.
Well, that's another thing that creators will sometimes do. They want to control the effect of what they're doing. They want to control how it gets out in the world, and you just can't do that. You release it, and it has its own life.
I've found that to be true with its rainmaking time, actually, organically.
Mm-hmm.
And other projects that I've been involved in, that you can't be attached to how it gets out.
That's
Even
right.
if you see it clearly in a vision, it has a different, almost intelligence. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what it feels like.
Yes, and that's why it's so important to have as much, in any project you do, to have as much truth in it as you possibly can, as you set it forth, because then it can be sustained in the world. Anything that has mere spin or that is somehow slightly not of truth will crumble around the edge and lose momentum and lose energy and run down. Something that has a kind of integrity to it will stay on its own momentum for a much longer time.
Although I'm sure some people would say, when you're talking about the works of pioneers like Sterling Energy and StarTech and, some of these people that are bringing through very important works that have a lot of integrity, they've struggled for years. I mean, they've been through all kinds of things where they've also, at times lost momentum. I mean, all of them, even Dr. Muhammad Yunus with the Grameen Bank. But then something happened and it caught hold. And
it's always a kind of hero's journey where you go into the dark night of the soul or the belly of the whale or all those other kinds of things Joseph Campbell talked about in the typical hero's journey. And you just know that that's part of the path.
You've met so many fascinating and creative people. And I know this is a difficult question because you can't limit the number of people because you've just met too many incredible people, but you've done a lot of traveling and you've talked to thousands and thousands. I can't even imagine how many thousands. But in the last, 5 to 10 years of your life, are there a few people you are comfortable speaking about and sharing with us that have influenced you dramatically?
Well, I think a lot of the people who've influenced me, you wouldn't know their names, and some of them I don't even know their names. I'm thinking of one woman I saw in a cafeteria. I was leading a group at Vassar, a group of teachers in a workshop, and every day we went through a cafeteria line, and I happened to notice the woman who passed out potatoes. It's one of these, you got more or less the same food every day, different meat, but always potatoes. And she passed out potatoes, and I noticed that people were talking to her. She was talking to them. And at the end of the week, the teachers gave a party for the cafeteria crew. Now, that's highly unusual. Very seldom do you just get to know the cafeteria crew. And when I looked into it, it was this one woman who would say something to each person as they passed, something very personal, like almost completely out of her intuition, so magical and so personal that she transformed lives even as she was just putting potatoes on plates. Now, that is a very unlikely thing to happen. I observed that. I told that to a group just recently, that story, and everyone had stories of people who did that in their lives. One of the women who takes tickets going out of the airport and wears a different hat every day. And then one of the women in the group said, I haven't told people this, but in my spare time, I'm a clown. And here was a group of people in business suits sitting in a chair. These chairs happened to be chairs you could swirl around. And she said, it would change the whole atmosphere in this room and create possibility for the whole week if everyone here could start twirling around in their chairs. Sure enough, this is a seminar. This is a business seminar. Everyone started twirling around in their chairs, laughing uproariously. People on the outside waiting for the, how you have these conferences and you have, a session from 1 to 3 and 3 to 5 and all that. They opened the door to see what was happening and were completely blown away by all these executives spinning around in these chairs, laughing maniacally.
I love it. How wild.
Now, that's a scene. That's a scene. It came from a story. And so here's this woman who's passing potatoes 10 years after she does this thing with potatoes. She's transforming a room of corporate executives who are twirling around, laughing maniacally, just from telling the story. Now, that's power.
Yes. It's lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuning into It's Rainmaking Time. We are here with the remarkable Betty Sue Flowers, and we are streaming the show on the World Wide Web. We're glad that you're there. Speaking of this magical woman, Betty Sue, when I say to children, it's rainmaking time, they get very happy. Their faces light up. They get all excited. That is until I tell them my name is Kahuna. And then they get really hysterical. Of course, they start running off at that point. But when I say it's rainmaking time, the faces light up. And I know and I say, are you a rainmaker? And they know what that is. They just
and they know that they are.
Indeed. They know what that is, and they know that they are. And when you talked about this magical woman, I feel like there's this fear. First of all, there's a distortion and a misunderstanding of what magic is. But when you talk to children and you look at children, that they all know.
Yes.
And that behind closed doors, adults know too. But when they come out of those doors, it's about covering the magic. And I was wondering if you could share a bit, because most of your world and most of your life has been so magical. I really would like to defer the conversation about magic to you at this point, to share something, your take on what it is and what it isn't.
Well, to me, magic is not superstition. It's not about making something happen. The old form of magic, sympathetic magic, is if you burned so many animals on the pyre, you'd make God do X, Y, or Z. It's a kind of lower form of technology. That kind of magic is not interesting to me. The magic that I'm thinking of is the noticing of the synchronicity in the world that already exists and the capacity for joy that can burst through at any moment. The corporate executives swinging around in their seats said in effect, you know, we don't all